review? How can the clients leave us feedback and help us improve? Igor, give me 20 cc's of user-generated content. Stat.
Yes, Master.
Just a few more tweaks to the calendaring workflow. Do you hear that, law firm? I'm going to make you all better. I need more software!
No, Master. The old law firm business model can't handle any more change.
Fool!
Ow.
This is not just a set of tinker toys. The livelihood of almost 1 million lawyers lies in the balance. If we don't do something now, we will continue to hemorrhage lawyers and lose them to less complex industries. I had an old friend who used to be an amazing trial lawyer. Now they sell vintage menswear on eBay.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Igor, turn the case management workflows to 11.
Not 11, Master. Lawyers are so regressed with technology, they think the Microsoft Office suite is the name of the business, no que te le quenta in.
Ha! No matter. After we're done here, the old law firm model will be completely aligned with tech, client needs, and business development. Now, hand me those calipers and our Zapier account. Let's see how much innovation the old model can take. And cut.
Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by ConsultWebs.
Welcome back to Lawsome, the only podcast for law firms with a severed head that wears a scarf around its neck to keep people from thinking we are that headless podcast. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain the legal community on the latest in legal marketing and law firm development. I am Jake Sanders, the Ichabod Crane of content, and I'm joined by the Rip Van Winkle of web marketing, Paul Julius. Paul, it's October. What is your favorite Halloween memory?
Statute of limitations being 7 years?
As far as like your memory, that's as far as you can remember back?
I mean, as far as, hypothetically any sort of
crimes,
criminal damage to property type.
Okay, if this is about like a purge thing, then we're just gonna have to.
No, I mean, all right. I mean, so when I was in, let's see, I think it was 7th or 8th grade, my friends and I dressed up like the Ghostbusters. That movie had just come out, so now you all know how old I am. We were dressed as Ghostbusters, and the town next to us was fairly affluent. So we're not talking snack-sized candy bars they gave out. They gave out full ones. I mean, that's y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So we'd been out for a while. I think we'd actually stopped home, dropped off some, went back out with an empty bag, and we came across a house. It was a very nice house. They had a kind of a foyer there, and they had a sign with a basket. Said, "Please take one." And there was candy in a basket, a lot of candy in a basket. And I don't know if it's because this house was maybe a little bit set to the side, or I hadn't seen it, or maybe they had just left, but it was pretty full. And I got to say that we took all the candy and the basket and the sign.
Oops.
So happy Halloween.
They must have expected that to happen, right?
I'm sure they did next year.
Well, let's ring the doorbell and let's get right to the treat part of this intro and tell people what's on the show today.
On the show today, we talk about an article that's talking about a book that's about legal innovation, tech adaptation, and how lawyers are resistant to the looming changes. And then we talk to lawyer, consultant, and legal tech mad scientist Jess Birken. And as always, we run the high voltage show our guests with 5 questions we ask everyone.
Pull up a plate. It's the Hot Takes Buffet.
The hot take buffet today is from AboveTheLaw.com. It's entitled Innovation in Legal Services, a Pipe Dream or a Necessity? By Nicole Black.
We're big fans of pipe dreams here. Just throwing that out.
And just dreaming and just wherever we can do it. Cylinders, graduated, all of these
Beakers.
things.
I mean,
Beakers?
whatever.
big
We
on
can-
beakers here.
We work with lab grown dreams or naturally farmed or grown in the wild.
Farm to
dreams,
table
really.
here. You heard it here, people.
all comes together.
But Michelle DeStefano's book, Legal Upheaval, Nicole read it, reviewed it for Above the Law. It's amazing. So the idea of this intro and why we picked it is on this legal tech kind of episode is the impetus behind choosing to use legal tech or seeking legal tech as a solution to try and solve your problems. We're kind of thinking of the main impetus behind that, which would be innovation or desiring to change or looking for creative ways or asking questions, really is what it ends up being. So Paul found this article, brought it to us, and Nicole's take is really interesting because it's a synthesis which sort of gets to the topic later when we talk with Jess about the failure rates of legal tech adoption in law firms. Like 2% of litigating firms are using a trial management software. It's just proven. Why? So what is that? And we're thinking that it's innovation. So I'll let Nicole's intro set the tone. These days, there's a lot of talk about innovation in the legal profession. Debates abound on whether the legal industry is immune from the disruptive influences of technology. Legal futurists and their ilk assert the answer is a resounding no. The practice of law is already undergoing a dramatic transformation. Meanwhile, many lawyers steadfastly disagree, all the while digging in their heels and practicing laws they've always done, insisting that analytical thought and legal guidance simply can't be replaced by machines. So, kind of talking about legal process being taken by tech, but we're talking about the processes of a law firm being helped by tech here. So that's that little caveat there. And we've had Michelle on the show, and she's had this to say about using innovation to solve problems.
Two things. First, it's not about problem solving because we teach lawyers how to problem solve, and research shows that lawyers are off the charts great at complex problem solving. What we aren't as strong at is problem finding. So Tina Seelig and Daniel Pink, both authors who I admire and read everything they write, both of them talk about how the best problem solvers are the best problem finders. And what problem finders do is they spend more time on the problem up front so that they don't end up solving a symptom or rushing to solve and missing the mark.
So talking about problems, Nicole had a problem with this book, with Michelle's book, which I think is funny. This is from a description of one of Michelle's workshops where they kind of kick off the thing and nurture innovation in your law firm. And we give the teams big crates full of tools, things to play with during our exercise, Legos, crayons, and spaghetti. And we play. We play with markers and crayons because it inspires us. We play music because it moves us. And we play improvisation games because they change us. And we laugh hard. And so...
I can hear it now, can't you?
Paul, read Nicole's response to this.
So Nicole writes, and I swear this could have come right out of my head too. Nicole says, in all honesty, this entire scenario sounds horribly uncomfortable to me. I can't imagine interacting in this way with my professional colleagues, and I'm not sure I'd even enjoy this type of activity on my own time with family and friends. I can't imagine that most of my lawyer colleagues would feel any different.
Oh, dude. So hilarious. No one expects that. You know?
But we all thought it. I mean,
that connects essentially to the gigantic chasm in between legal tech marketing and legal tech adoption in the law firms.
Yeah, I think there's a parallel too, even here to we talked to Jess a little bit about Tech Show. We've had some people on that were at Tech Show, and I think there's a little bit of that in there too, where there's like this forced enthusiasm, I think,
around innovation and creativity and cutting edge.
Let's all get to it, man. Yeah, we're gonna do this. And you get back to the office and you're like,
we ain't doing it.
I'm not gonna be replying to that email.
So what's your thought on that? I mean, it's just thinking of innovation and kind of cultivating that idea to inspire the solutions and questioning. How would you do that for those introverted lawyers who don't want to play with spaghetti? and have a think in.
I'm just picturing that scene in Close Encounters. This means something.
The mashed potato thing?
Yeah,
Mashed potato?
yeah.
Yes, love it. Love that sculpture.
Those type of events are not for everybody. I'll put it that way. I have a hard time with forced fun. I also have a hard time interacting with a group of people. So, that's
let that flavor the conversation.
I'm just saying that's, we might want to put that in there that not everything is going to fit every person and stuff. And sometimes
our thousands of listeners are listening to you. Go ahead.
It's okay. But I'm saying that sometimes, putting yourself into something that's a little uncomfortable can have positive results. So let's not just write it off.
And Nicole totally gives that at the end. She she says, this is my thought. I haven't experienced this. I'm just reading this book and I'm providing my thoughts. She's very, very diplomatic in the way that she presented it, and I think it's an important voice to have there. Because everyone talks innovation, everyone talks celebration, everyone talks technological fascination, but you go back and it's just stagnation.
Here's what I think that. So let's talk about the beginning part where she's in agreement with what Michelle says, where she talks about the lawyer has this mindset that is not conducive to innovation or creativity. Mm-hmm. It's pounded out of you. And it's reinforced too. I mean, like we talk about it later, there is kind of a culture where it's like, this is how we do things. This is how we've always done things. Mm-hmm. And we brought that up many times here. But if you dig into some of the blog posts that Jess has written, and we talked to Justy about this a bit too. Something I'm seeing cropping up more and more, and I think it's a pretty good indicator, is Zapier. And I think it's kind of cool that people are saying, I use this and I use this. It would be cool if we could connect this process that happens here with this thing that happens over here. And there's a way to do it now. And that, folks, that's innovation.
Right.
That thing didn't exist for you before. And you automated something.
Oh my gosh, what a great thing. And it's Zapier, right? Happier.
It's
Zapier.
It's pronounced like rapier, from what I understand, like the sword.
Oh, I thought it was Zapier. Zapier makes you happier.
Is that it? Zapier?
Happier. Zapier. Anyway, this brings my point of the FrankenFirm. And I think there's a bit of Franken-shaming that happens too. People don't want to take little bites or make small steps or do small solutions because they want to have it be one and done. You want a blanket solution versus a quilt. My take is that, and we find out later when we talk to Jess, is the desire and the want to adopt the small fixes that will get you to your goal is more important than the tech. And Zapier makes the FrankenFirm possible. It's not a patchwork because it's centralized, but it's all doing what you need it to do for the purpose. Not that it's this one and done solution, so it's like a mannequin versus Frankenstein. And you can have something that looks like you think it does, but it doesn't do what you need it to do. And you can have something that you built from existing materials and made possible with a little bit of science and belief. And so so what she says later is that there's nothing special about her. She just has a resilience around wanting to test things and knowing that they might fail. And she's okay with sewing together different solutions towards a greater goal, which is helping her clients and helping her, So it's an interesting blend. You just have to start with the problem and want to put it together. So I think,
something that really struck me too when we're talking later, and I didn't go into it, but with my background in manufacturing, a lot of fixturing, tooling, clamping, stuff like that. People never think about it until you get into actually making something. But a lot of that stuff just gets rigged up as you go along. Like I have to drill out 400 of these things. It'd be easier if I just made a fixture. So now you've innovated a little thing, and you don't realize it until, after you've done this for a while. yeah, you are improving the process, right? Would that not be innovation?
Thinking with innovation first, you come up against the problems that you'd come up with, that you'd come up against anyway.
Yeah.
These problems are going to be here. They're going to want to do this. There's going to be some snag in the calendaring or the task management or the,
Absolutely.
the life cycle of this case management software. There's going to be a problem.
That's a really good point. That's
but what your point is that you don't wait.
Your point.
Well, take them up out. I'll tell
Here
you.
we go.
But that's the whole idea. Like, rather than thinking I need a template for all these things going into a storm, you just are ready to weather it and know that you're going to test through it. So that's what Jess has and she's connected it to her practice, and she's connected it to her philosophy. She's connected it to, her advice that she's spreading around, like the finest knowledge-based Hellman's mayonnaise.
For sure. Oh yeah, we're gonna get into that too. I think though there's something. It comes up a lot, and I think seeing some of these things we talk about ABA Tech Show and stuff. That nothing wrong with it. It's great to see that stuff and go there.
Go be technical.
But when we talk to people like Jess and Justy and Michelle and Nicole Black and people like that, you get this sense that a lot of times some of the things that these companies who are having these big showings and write all these forward thought leadership or solving the legal problems through tech, you're solving hypothetical problems. It's you're saying, well, if this happens, blah blah blah, and sometimes it just doesn't relate to what someone is having on the boots on the ground lawyer isn't experiencing that problem and doesn't need a super robust solution that's going to cost thousands of dollars a month.
And just like she says later, in lawyer facing communities online, all of it is problem based. What do you do for calendaring? What do you guys use for this? What do you use for that? And the real innovation and the real thought, in the real interesting part of Jess is that she's not looking there for the solutions. She's looking at her problems first, and she's doing the research, and she's going out there into the wild and foraging for this stuff. And we talked later off record, and she was wondering, where are the lawyers that are like her? And I think the stuff that she lays down later can inspire some lawyers to start making these small little steps that can lead to monster improvements, maybe, So let's fire up the dangerous electrical equipment.
Yep, just like every week.
And go to the interview.
Stay tuned as we continue on a very special episode of Lawsome.
Any lawyer looking to grow their business online can generate more leads from their website by hiring ConsultWebs. After working with lawyers exclusively since 1999, we've tested thousands of web designs and marketing strategies, so we know what flips and what flops. For more information, visit www.consultwebs.com today.
And now, for a Lawsome interview.
Jess Birken is the owner of Birken Law Office, where she helps nonprofits solve problems so they can quit worrying and get back to the mission. She got her JD from Mitchell Hamlin School of Law, got her master's in nonprofit management from there as well. She has a bachelor's in sociology. She's a certified transformative mediator. And so she's probably reading our minds right now. With a track record that impressive and a Twitter presence more impressiver, we're so thankful that Jess is haunting our hallways on this very special episode of Lawsome. Jess, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. That was an epic intro.
Thank you. Thank you for being the proof of that intro. So tell us about Birken Law Office and what your mission is over there. Like most law firm owners, what problem were you trying to solve when you decided to hang your shingle?
Well, that's an interesting question because I think I think I was definitely trying to solve my own problem, because I was in a different firm where I had to get agreement on things, and it definitely was appealing to me to go out on my own, where I would be the decider, to make a
Yes.
W reference
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, like, my problem had been in several past jobs that, like, I could see where something would be better, or I wanted to fix something or change something,
Mhm.
and running into walls on getting those kinds of things done. So I certainly solved my own problem in that respect. And I think that, um, my goal was to work with small nonprofits, because in where I'm at in Minnesota, we have a very large nonprofit sector, and a lot of nonprofits can't necessarily afford to go downtown and pay somebody $700 an hour to do a bylaws revision for them. So, my goal has sort of always been to work in that community. I love the nonprofit community. I feel at home there. I worked inside nonprofits for a long time. So, in addition to solving my own problem, I guess I was hoping to bring some resources to that sector as well.
And so, talking about resources, you're big on tech. You're big on legal tech, software as a service, AI, document review. But you also have sort of a holistic take. It isn't all about the bells and whistles. There, you have a very kind of process-oriented vantage point that you bring to your Twitter heat, in regards to legal tech. So I mean, thinking from our audience's perspective, there seems to be like too many choices, like for case management, too many choices for intake, too many choices for digital marketing, too many choices for web hosting, and then there's an even larger number of people who just don't even use tech at all. The adoption rate for litigating law firms, it was something like 70% don't have like a central place where they do their case management for trials.
Right? I saw that there was some report that came out about, basically it said 2% of firms have moved to the cloud, and the rest are all on like
I
their
don't
own
even know if
servers
that's
or networks.
possible.
And I was like,
Maybe they don't
what?
know which cloud they're in. They're like sent from my Gmail account, So, how do you think
Yeah,
tech applies to the firm, and then how can you help? How do you help? How could you help our audience sort of deal with that analysis paralysis? I mean, what's your take on tech in the firm and how it helps or hurts you or get you to that mission of helping your nonprofit clients?
yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. It is analysis paralysis. And I mean, if you participate in any sort of like lawyer facing Facebook groups, like I'm in a bunch of them, a lot of a lot of what people post in there is just, what are you guys using for this? What are you guys using for that? And it's like trying to figure out what software to use by asking other lawyers what they use, which I think is a ridiculous way to go about doing your research, because, you know, everybody's practice areas are different. And I've never sourced my software that way. Like, hey, what is everyone using? Please tell me your opinions about it. Like, just go on Google and start researching. I don't know why lawyers want to do their software procurement that way. I think it's really more an issue of they're struggling with the overwhelm, right? Because just like you said, there are a million things to choose from. And I guess, like, for me, I just do my due diligence. Like, I look at it, I think, will these features work for me? Will this work with other things I'm using? And then I just try it. And I'm just really willing to try something and even pay for a year subscription and decide to scrap it after 6 months if it's just terrible. I've got a much higher tolerance for that than I think many lawyers do. So I just wish people would try more things, especially when you can get like a free trial. It's like, just get in there and try it out, you
Mm,
know?
mm. I'm just wondering if maybe they think they'll slow themselves down by trying things. I've come to this sort of paradox that fixing something is unproductive. like addressing a need that you have and pulling the car over and trying to fix things slows you down.
Oh
So
yeah, totally.
so
Like
everyone
I'm
says
too
like,
busy. Oh, I'd
yeah,
love to try that
Right.
online scheduling tool, but I'm just too busy to find the time to do it. Well, you know why you're freaking too busy is because you're sending 8,000 emails, scheduling all your conference calls, client meetings, and networking appointments. So guess what? If you took the 30 minutes to do the thing, you'd free up the time. It's just like, yeah, I beat my head against the wall sometimes when I'm teaching because you get this pushback that's like, oh, I can't make the time to fix the thing. Or they scribble down like, I'm going to try these things that you suggest. And then you wonder if anybody ever actually does it.
Mm-mm. we know the answer, don't we, Paul? What's the answer?
Well, I mean, it's a tough spot though, because I think this takes it out a little bit more into business owners, not just lawyers, but everybody, or even in management positions and stuff. It's like, I'd love to, but you get to a point where you're just barely keeping your head above water. You know, there's no one's throwing a line out to pull you in. So
You're so right. And like I'm in a relationship with a guy who's not a lawyer and he's in a completely different industry, owns his own business. And it's really like any small business owner, especially where your expertise is the product. You're just drinking out of the fire hose. And like I struggle in my conversations with my boyfriend because it's like, yeah, you're getting all these calls. Like you should try outsourcing to a call service. And it's like I get that. Like trying to make the time to do the thing, you have to actually like stop drinking out of the fire hose, which means your customers and clients are potentially getting mad at you. You're getting behind on your deadlines. Like it's definitely that's a problem. That's
yeah.
real.
So you just made a really good point in that, and lawyers too, when your expertise is the product, what you can scale is everything that's not that. So, like you said, intake, phones, appointments, calendar, follow-up email, all that stuff, that maybe there's a thing there. And that kind of leads into the next question. There's so many out of the box products and apps that are trying to make our lives easier like this. But does this really blind us to the reality of the way tech needs to function in a business? Like we were just talking about, but you say a lot, take it one bite at a time and take a break. It's not all supposed to happen in one swoop. So what does fixing one thing seem like more of a task than just disrupting? Like we said, just call a timeout, say I'm shutting everything down for a week. And when we come back, we're all on, whatever, this case management system.
I don't know what that's about, but I think you're onto something there because the things that I'm always putting out there, like, hey, this one little tool could make such a big difference in your practice or in your business. It's why do people struggle to take that first step? And I almost think there's, for lawyers in particular, I think there's something where we've been indoctrinated to be perfectionistic. Maybe we're like that in already, but law school is like a total institution and they break you down and build you back up again, right? It's like boot camp and brainwashed into like this risk manager, overachiever. So maybe there's something about like being afraid to feel incompetent or afraid to waste your time or afraid to waste your money. Like I think it's a psychological thing, obviously.
I'm a big fan of Reddit, so I've been hopping around on there quite a bit. And something that came up a couple times that really stuck out with me, and Mike Whalen brought this up last week on Twitter.
Love Mike.
Love Mike.
Is the man.
I love him so much.
Yeah,
he is so awesome. But he was talking about substance abuse, and it just so happened that I saw these different responses from people about workplace stress and stuff like that. It wasn't specifically about lawyers, but they both said, well, I worked in a big law firm where drinking and Adderall are just part of the culture. It's just accepted. And it made me think, and I'm not going to go too far, down that path with regards to that whole train of thought.
That's a whole other episode. Yeah,
that's a whole other.
And we'll load up on the Adderall for that one.
It's an 8-hour episode.
That's right.
And we're going to talk really fast.
We wrote it like Jack Kerouac. We just kept taping these pages together. Anyway, the point is there seems to be this thing where there's just this cultural, and you just kind of led into it, where there's this culturally accepted, like, we're always so busy.
Also, there's something that you pair your advice with, was that incremental isn't the dirty word.
Yeah.
Like one bite at a time. And you always say changing things are hard, just take a breath. You really have a humanistic take on these things, which I think is the breath that you need and the space that's required in between thought and action. And there's like, are you being specific when you're giving all this really inspirational Zen advice? I mean, is there something, what's your philosophy behind that? Why are you telling people it's okay to do this piece by piece?
Partly probably just therapeutic for me, because it's like, that's what I am dealing with, right? Like I'm just sharing what I'm going through. Like, hey, I'm trying these things. I'm making changes. And you know what? Once you start down this road, you realize I made this thing, or I tried this thing, and then you see, oh, here's where it doesn't really work right, and then you fix it, or do it better, and so there's this idea that like we have to do everything perfect, and it has to be crystallized perfection from day one, and that's just not realistic. And so I run into my own, psychological limiting scripts about that stuff. Being a type A overachiever that graduated magna cum laude, and I mean, that's me too, right? So,
and you're not supposed to. And good point, Jess. There's something about we sort of scorn lawyers. Why aren't you more risk averse, or why don't you take more chances? Like, I wish you would have learned this in law school. There's something like some of this advice comes off like that,
Yeah.
I forget who it was, Sean, this attorney from Arizona, but he was like, why are you guys shaming? A lot of lawyer marketing, tech marketing is shaming people. You're either a dinosaur or you're ready to be on the cutting edge.
There's totally a middle ground.
There's totally a human middle ground. And Paul saw Mike Whalen at the ABA Tech Show like a year or so ago. And Mike was sitting in the common area just staring. And like Paul came up, he's like, what's going on, man? And Mike's like, what are we doing? What are we all doing here? And so some people are like, well, what? Why would you start there? Well, because from there you can build something, because I don't know. I'm not sure. Let's try. Rather than saying it's the best ever, no questions, no fail, ice cold, 0 fail rate. There's something that's so demonic about that maybe brings in, that question about Paul saying that's just the place of the culture. That's how could you calm that other than providing external substances to sort of quell that fire and the drive and the passion. And, it can be really confusing. So here, if you could just give one piece of advice, just one, and I know that I'm trying to, this seems limiting, but just one piece of advice that you would give the audience that's maybe just starting out, or they want to make that first step into the tech-assisted law firm. Like, what's your one piece of advice?
Oh man, that's hard.
It could be a couple.
One,
I think just
1 through 4.
Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to make mistakes. And then on top of that, start with things that are low stakes, right? Like, give yourself permission to screw it up, and start with something that if it gets messed up, it's not going to like bankrupt you. So I think that's like a really good sort of foundational way to start when you're going to try something new. Because I think once people, I have friends that are lawyers that start getting into, using the tools that I promote or use or whatever. And it's like once you start, then you start to see like, oh, I can do this. So I think there's just something about giving yourself permission to say, okay, this might not be perfect, and I'm going to try something small.
Leading into that, talking about change, I have to ask you, you started out in criminal law and now you're in nonprofit. That's a huge kind of change of direction there. And
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with the nonprofit. So can you tell us a little bit more, like what drew you to that? Why is and why do you like it more? I mean, what's the big differences, and a little bit more about what you do with that.
Well, I grew up watching just way too much LA Law,
Oh yeah.
Law and Order. Like I was born in 78, so I feel like I lived through like the heydays of like the lawyer shows.
Harry
Although,
Hamlin. Oh man, get out.
Arnie, Harry, like I mean, come on. Those were such good years for TV. But so I just really thought that's what I wanted to do. And I really based my decisions on what I saw on TV. I mean, if we're being honest, it's like that's where I based my decisions. So the actual reality of lawyering in a trial context for me was just really depressing. And after law school, I worked in a 2-judge county, so I got to do everything with the judge, right? We did civil litigation, we did probate, we did family law, we did criminal. We did conciliation court was always my favorite because it was always like some whacked out episode of Judge Judy where like people just told their crazy story and had no rules of evidence involved. But I just started to realize that was not a good place for me. Like I'm too sensitive. Like I care too much about what happens to people. And other lawyers in the courthouse were just like, you eventually you just get a callus. You just won't care as much. It'll be fine. I was like, what? That doesn't sound good. Like my fundamental core compassion itself will just like not care as much about people's outcomes because I'll just be worn down by the system. It's like, okay.
Hooray.
Yeah, that didn't seem like a good life plan. And then the bottom dropped out of the economy in 2008, and that really made my decision easy because there were no jobs. So it was like, yeah, let's go back to school. I went and got a nonprofit master's and immediately felt like, oh, I'm in the right place. Like these are my people.
So thinking, people want to talk to you about legal tech. They want to talk to you about nonprofit stuff. They want to talk to you about piece by piece solutions, or you want to help them look at their bylaws. Where can people find you online, Jess Birken?
You can find me online at birkenlaw.com, or you can always find me on Twitter at Jess Birken. And if you want to talk to me about legal tech, you can find me at hackyourpractice.lawyer.
5 questions we ask everyone.
What was the last book you read?
Dan Kennedy, No BS Direct Marketing for Non-Direct Sale Businesses or something like that.
Dan Kennedy is pretty good.
He's got really long book titles. Sorry, Dan Kennedy.
It's his long tail strategy.
That's an SEO.
Right.
SEO value. Number 2, what's your favorite place?
My favorite place? Ooh, Edinburgh, Scotland.
Ooh, cool. Number 3, what sites, blogs, newsletters, or podcasts do you regularly check in with?
I love Seth Godin's Akimbo. I also listen to Lawyers Gone Ethical by Megan Xavier, just because sometimes I miss Megan and I need to hear her voice.
That's great.
Yeah.
And about 100 other ones that I won't bore you with.
Number 4, if you were stranded on a desert island and could only pick one condiment to take with you, what would it be?
Hellman's mayonnaise.
Yes. Finally. I'm the only person. I like mayonnaise. I'm like the only person in my family. I think I'm the
It
only.
has to be Hellman's.
Oh, yeah. No, you can't. No generic. None of that.
It
Yeah,
brings out
absolutely.
the best. This is what-
Yeah. Okay. Number 5. After a long day or a long week at work, how do you relax and unwind?
I really like to go out dancing. I love house music, and so probably it's meeting up with some friends and going out for a good night out on the town.
For show notes, links, and info, go to thelawsonpodcast.com or follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Be sure to leave us a review and rating in iTunes or wherever you find the you listen to. Until next week, stay lawson.